Hey everybody, big welcome back, and welcome if you've never been here before. My name's Mike, and today we're going to do a little different kind of video. I've been thinking about it, and one thing I hate is celebrities and YouTubers that try to put their politics onto you. Like, well, I don't know why anyone cares who Taylor Swift or Matt Damon or fill in the blank. I don't know why anyone cares about what their favorite celebrity, who they want to vote for. So with that being said, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the American election. You guys got Donald J. Trump and Kamala C. Harris, I think. I don't know. Anyway, for those of you that don't know, I'm a Canadian, so my opinion does not actually matter or count worth shit. But as with American politics, they be crammed down our throat here in Canada every day anyway. It's top of the news. It's world news. So, first of all, I want to apologize for the audio. We're driving around in my 1975 MG Midget. This is probably the least professional, I don't know, podcast or whatever you want to call this vlog. Anyway, so I just wanted to apologize for that, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. But anyway, so I want to give you a little background because I think it's important to know what I know about both candidates to begin with. Like, where did I start from? And I'll tell you where I'm at. So Kamala Harris, before she became vice president, I'd never even heard of her. I'm from Canada, so I didn't really pay attention to who the district attorney was or any of that down in San Francisco. So I never would have really cared. So I had no idea who she was. Donald Trump, on the other hand, before he ran for president, I did know who he was. My thoughts on him were that he was just some wealthy guy, owned a bunch of businesses and stuff like that. But I never actually really gave him two thoughts. I didn't really care. I never watched The Apprentice. I never followed his career, nor did I give a shit about it. I knew he was in Home Alone, and I knew he had a show, The Apprentice, but like I said, I never watched it, so I didn't care. So why am I telling you that? And that's because that actually matters. I'm coming to both these candidates with no real opinion over either of them. That's just kind of two people that were running. So when I saw Donald Trump run the first time in 2016, I remember watching on the news that he came down the escalator and he, announced that he was going to run, he was going to drain the swamp and all this shit. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess whatever, it didn't really matter to me. I remember I was talking to my ex-mother-in-law, and she's like, he'll never win, it's a stunt, and whatever, he's, and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. But I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought until the story came out about grab her by the pussy. And that's what he likes to do with women. When he meets a hot woman or something, he grabs her by the pussy. And so initially when I heard that, I just right away, the thing that came to my mind was, why is that news? Like, I'm rude, and I pretty well exclusively hang out with other rude people. I have said many inappropriate things to friends, and I know a lot of women that have said a lot of inappropriate things. So when they said that, I was like, that, I don't know, to me that's a non-news story. Then started coming out all this stuff about the Russian collusion and whatever, and so I was like, oh, well, maybe he's into some shit. So I kind of thought, like, I didn't know much about Hillary Clinton, to be honest, either. At the point, like, obviously I knew she was Bill Clinton's wife, and that he got blown by Monica Lewinsky, which, I mean, whatever, you're in that position, that's what happens. So anyway, I didn't really know what to think of it, nor did I think a whole lot of it. I wasn't necessarily rooting for Trump or Hillary when they ran. I just thought some of the stuff that I was hearing sounded like kind of like nonsense, like it didn't really matter. But when he did win, and we're going to get to who I'm telling you I would vote for if I was an American. So when he did win, I'm watching kind of, a little on the news here and there. of the various things that, he says and does. And, actually, okay, I'm just going to, because probably people are going to unsubscribe and click off the video anyway, so I'll tell you flat out, between him and Harris, I would actually end up voting for him. But now let me tell you why. It's easier to tell my story if I tell you that first. So, and if you're offended and you don't want to hear it, that's fine. I totally understand. A lot of people in the States are so split, and they have no ability to hear the other side or why. And very clear, I am not a Trumper. Actually, let's get that out of the way. I'm all over the place, but I think that Trump is, even though I just said I would vote for him if I was an American, I think he is arrogant. I think he is childish. I don't think he's very presidential. I think that he's probably very self-centered, self-absorbed. Fill in the blank. He's a lot of things. He is an asshole. But with that being said, when I watched his shit, and I watched that, he never took his paycheck. Like, a paycheck went to charity, $400,000 a year. What he gave up to become president, running his companies, he had to transfer power to his son or whatever. And I'm going to ask for your forgiveness. If I say anything wrong, obviously I'm only taking snippets from the news like most people. So if you're a diehard never Trumper, you're going to scrutinize everything I say a lot more than, than people who actually might like him. But anyway. So I watched his various policies on the border. Well, first of all, I didn't really like the way he said things. He didn't always, come across as very nice. Sometimes, borderline racist. I've never seen him drop the N-bomb or any other derogatory remarks towards people. So I'm not going to say he's a flat-out racist. But do I think he probably has a preference to white people? I think he probably does. He may not, I may be wrong, but he probably does. And I'm not racist, I'm not sexist, I'm not homophobic, but I am a realist. So when I look at stuff, you gotta say, okay, well, you got the guy with the mean tweets, but the economy was seemingly doing well. The border, I'm not against immigration, but I do agree with his policy. You can't just have a field day willy-nilly. Anybody wants to come in can come in. And I know there's going to be some of you that are watching right now that are going, no, if it's a humanitarian crisis, you have to, America's got to do its part, whatever. And I get it, but I'll tell you what. Is one illegal immigrant too many and going to destroy America? Probably not, unless he's like a Bin Laden or something like that, you know what I mean? But I mean, your average illegal alien that crosses the border is not normally going to be that dangerous. But would you say 1 billion illegal aliens, or undocumented, whatever you want to call it, would if 1 billion people crossed America's southern border and came into America today, would people say, yes, that's an acceptable number? Or I'm going to bet 99% of people would say, okay, no, that would be too much. So what we know then is that somewhere between 1 and 1 billion, somewhere in there, it's an acceptable number of immigration that the United States infrastructure, economy, schools, healthcare, police, housing, everything. There's a number in there that works, and it's going to be different numbers for all of those different departments I just said, because the police department can handle a certain amount of new people, and it's going to be a different amount than what the school board can handle. So anyway, what I'm getting at is that I agree with having some kind of border control. You can't just have a free-for-all. It does make sense to me when I cross into another country. I got to show my passport, and I got to tell them why I'm coming there. You pass into the States, they may or may not do a record check. Canada does. You come into Canada to make sure you don't have a criminal record. But ultimately, checks and balances at the border are not unreasonable to me. Should people have a pathway to citizenship? Yeah, I just said that, whatever the number is, if it's 100,000, if it's 200,000, whatever it is, and this goes for my country, Canada, here as well. some kind of reasonable number that they can handle. So I agreed with his policies on that. He put in place a America First policy, which I'll say when he first actually did it, I was like, oh, you asshole, because he was putting tariffs on Canadian like aluminum and steel and dairy and whatever else. So he's putting all these tariffs in because that's what he's famous for, being an asshole and tariffs. So when he did that, I was like, okay, well, I guess part of me gets it though, because like his job's to look out for America, not for Canada, not for Australia, not for Japan. His job is to look out for America. And then once you've looked out for America, that's when you can start trying to look after your allies or whatever. But he found things where he thought that the American people were being ripped off. So when I looked into it, I guess Canada was flooding America with dehydrated milk or some shit, like below value or something, and then subsidizing the farmers. So he wanted to put a stop to that. And same with Canadian aluminum and steel. If we're selling it to them at a lower price than Americans can produce it for, and then we subsidize it through tax dollars, whatever. If that's how it works, it was roughly something like that anyway. Then I'm like, okay, well, I understand what he's saying. Then we start getting into, so anyway, so he's got a bunch of policies that I didn't agree with, but then there's ones that I did agree with. When he said to Ford, if they want to switch their manufacturing over to Mexico, they're going to pay like a crazy tariff on the way back. I'm like, I'm not Italian, by the way. You see my hand. I'm not Italian. I know it seems like it, but I'm not. But yeah, he said you're going to pay big tariffs on the way back. And then Ford said, oh, you know what? Actually, on second thought, we're going to go ahead and stay in America. I looked at that and said, okay, well, he did what he had to do to protect American jobs. I can respect that. So, and the whole while, I'm watching his immature behavior with Kim Jong-un, calling him Rocket Man, and I'm like, this guy's going to start World War III. Thinking, like, what the hell is he doing? And this is when he's slipping off on Twitter all the time. But I was like, when they wanted to silence him on Twitter and Facebook and all that, I said, like, I don't agree with that. Just because you don't like the message doesn't mean someone shouldn't be able to tell it. And if you disagree with that, wait till it's your messenger being silenced and see if you still disagree with it. Just as, you know, you have the right to not listen or agree with the message, right? You don't have to hear it. If you don't want to listen to shit, turn it off. But I'm not a fan of censorship. With the, you know, I know they always say, well, you can't yell fire in a movie theater, in a crowded theater. Okay. But I agree that that's nonsense. You can't do that. But simply giving your opinion on something, people have the right to be right and people have the right to be wrong. And then there's a lot of gray out there. People hate to think about it, but there's actually a lot of gray in the world. There's not just right and wrong. There's also the, well, partially this and partially that. And you got to allow for that. So anyway, so we start getting into more of the shit with him. I might say things out of order, but let's use for an example the documents. Because I'm just watching this from the sidelines with my popcorn, and they, you know, they say after he's left office. Actually, no. Well, first we'll talk about January 6th, the insurrection. So, in my opinion, first of all, that's not an insurrection. Did it suck? Yes. Should it have happened? No. But when I look at the stuff, and maybe he didn't do it as quick as he should, so he said that, you know, we're having a massive march down to the Capitol, and we're going to fight for our democracy, this, that, and the other. But he ultimately did tell people to be peaceful, and at some point he told them to go home. He offered up the National Guard to Pelosi, who turned it down. Now, do I think he had a right to dispute the election? Of course he does. It's the First Amendment, freedom of speech. He has the right to disagree with, you know, with what's being said. I do personally, I don't know if he won or lost that election, you know, against Joe Biden. I'm not sure if the election was stolen. But for people to get mad that he said that, well, when Hillary Clinton said that he stole the election, why is that okay? Because people are only okay with their messenger. That's why it's okay. I remember I'm just watching on the sidelines going like this, what do we got going on today in American politics? So I thought, like, in my personal opinion, I think that there was some fuckery in the election, and I'll tell you why. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm an idiot. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just an idiot. I'm a Canadian, and I don't know everything. But my understanding is that they were sending out the mail-out ballots, which are supposed to be requested, but they were sending them out to people that didn't request it, but were registered Democrats. So by doing that, you're taking, in my opinion, I might be wrong, let's just say Joe Smith, you know, he kind of liked Biden, and he's a registered Democrat, but he probably wasn't going to vote for him because he really didn't, you know what I mean, maybe it didn't appeal to him that much, where it was worthwhile in going to the polls. So he wasn't going to bother. But he's a registered Democrat, so let's go ahead and send him a ballot anyway, so hoping that he'll fill it out. But by only one side doing that, you're going to get a bunch of ballots where people that maybe wouldn't have gone to the polls, they didn't want to request a ballot, but now they're going to go ahead and they're going to fill it out and mail it in because you made it easy for them. But then the other side didn't do that, which, as far as I know, I might be wrong, but that's my understanding, is that the Republicans didn't do that. They were saying you got to show up in person with ID, which brings that one up, and I'm like, having ID to vote is not unreasonable. I don't know how people are going to argue that ID to vote is unreasonable. It's been like that for whatever, forever. So that's another one of his policies I happen to agree with, even though I think he's an asshole. I do. Then anyway, so you start getting into back to the Hillary Clinton. I'm all over the place. Sorry, guys. With the Steele dossier, I don't know a whole lot about it, but anyway, all I know is that a whole shit ton of money was spent trying to say that he was colluding with Russia, and anyway, all that money spent and there was no collusion. But strangely enough, creating that did not somehow warrant political interference in an election or whatever. But when Trump said that he didn't bank Stormy Daniels and paid her hush money to shut the fuck up, which she didn't, that was political interference. Like, it just seems to me like, you know, one side can do something and get away with it, and then not the other side. So I find that really odd. That why, when he does something, is it illegal? Documents, same thing. So he was the president of the United States. He had the authority to declassify, from my understanding, any document within that White House. However, also my understanding is that he didn't do it right. I don't know. He thought he waves a magic wand and says, declassified, 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 and that's just the end of it. That's all he had to do. Well, I guess that's not how it works. I guess there's a process you have to follow, and he didn't follow it. However, my understanding on the chain of events was that the records department contacted him, said, hey, buddy, you took a bunch of documents. We need to come check them out. They came to Mar-a-Lago. They said, okay, these ones here, we got to take these ones back. The rest of them there, you got to put a better lock on that room. And he said, yeah, no problem. Added a couple deadbolts to the door or whatever the hell he did. And then next thing you know, a couple months later, weeks later, whatever it was, all of a sudden the FBI shows up, search warrant raiding Mar-a-Lago with authorized use for deadly force. As far as I understand, maybe I'm wrong, but if that's the case, like, it just sounds preposterous. According to him and his team, they would have gave back anything and everything that was requested, and the records department didn't request the records to the documents. So just to show up at a former president's home with a search warrant going through his, his wife's dildo drawer, because it just seemed like political interference. And then it comes out that Biden did the same damn thing, with the exception that he was not the president and didn't even have the authority to have the documents he had. But no charges for him. I'm like, that sounds like nonsense. Then we're going to get to his New York shit, because he's got a lot of them. And they're like, he overvalued the square footage and the value of some of his assets. And they tried to say that Mar-a-Lago was only worth $20 million. That's on the tax roll. And my house, what I paid for it, so here's where I stand on this. My house on the tax roll is worth about a third of what we paid for the house. Yes, you heard that right. So the tax, my tax is assessed on about like a little less than half, so between a half and a third of what I paid for the house. So the bank and the seller and, you know, whatever, the mortgage people, whatever. Anyway, it would appear that we all did the same thing by overvaluing the asset and then giving a loan on that overvalue, because that's what happened. We paid the seller got paid from the bank, let's call it double the value on the tax document. So, but the bank had an understanding, the bank knew what the city values our property at, and they knew what the seller was at. The bank came down to the property and said, yes, no problem. You need whatever the fuck, $500,000. Here you go. The property and the house is worth that, even though the tax document says it's far less. So when I hear that shit, I'm like, well, me and almost everybody else is, as far as I know, I'm sure everyone else's taxes and property values the same way. We're all guilty of it. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. That just seems like some political bullshit. And so I'm watching all these things, and the whole Stormy Daniels thing, I don't know. If he banged a hooker or he didn't, or porn star or whatever it is, who cares? Does that really matter? JFK was banging Marilyn Monroe. Bill Clinton was getting blowies from Monica Lewinsky. Does it really matter? That's his wife's problem, not the country's problem. Does it make him an ignorant prick? Yes. Is he an asshole? Should she file divorce and take him for half of everything he owns? Absolutely, go right ahead. That's grounds for a divorce. But is it grounds for, you know, this whole political interference shit and all that? No. It's nonsense. Oh, what else do we got here? He's got so much. He's got this lady, I don't know the whole detail of it, but the lady with the department store saying that he felt her up or something in the 90s or some shit. But she didn't remember, so they didn't call it rape. They got him on aggravated assault or something like that. But I don't know if he did it. I wasn't there. But to fine him or to award her $5 million, and then when he goes on publicly and says that he didn't do it and she's not my type, for her to say that destroyed her image, and this nobody of a lady, I don't know who the hell she is, I don't give a shit about her image, but anyway, to award her $85 million because he simply said, I didn't do it and she's not my type, once again, just sounds ridiculous. I don't know how they can come to this shit. And all that, like I said, I think the guy's an asshole. But I'll give him credit, though. There was, America did not enter into a new war, which was the first time in 50 years or something that a president did not have a new war started under their watch. And so to me, that's something, you know what I mean? And then, the people that hate him, they're like, well, that's not because of him, that's because of the advisors, it wasn't him. I don't care. All I know is that he was the president when that happened. All his ignorance that I thought was going to lead to World War III with Kim Jong-un somehow ended in a handshake between him and Kim Jong-un, and North Korea and South Korea shaking hands, which is completely fallen apart. He made a deal with the devil, with the Taliban, to get them to back off and leave the Americans alone in Afghanistan. As far as I understand, not one American life was lost after that deal was made. I know you don't want to make a deal with the Afghanistan or with the Taliban, but I look at the, Biden leaving all those weapons there, and I've watched the videos of the weapons, and I just think, I'm not an American, but I'm a North American. We have an alliance with the USA, and does it piss me off to watch Taliban flying around in an American Black Hawk? Well, yes, it does, and it should piss anybody off. The 13 service members that were killed on that horrendous withdrawal, it was ridiculous. I was a fan of them getting out of there. It was time to get out. They proved their point. And then, Trump says that, none of these other wars would have happened October 7th and Russia going into Ukraine. And I'm inclined to believe him. He had Putin, and not because Putin was his buddy. Like, there's nothing that seems like Putin was his buddy. I know everyone likes to say that, but it doesn't seem like Putin actually particularly liked him. But the sanctions that America can put on other countries destroys them in, financially. So he had Putin behaving, he had Iran, Syria, they get all these places behaving because they feared his erratic behavior. And if I was American, I wouldn't care what led to them behaving, I would care that they were behaving. I think that he was on the right path with that. Unfortunately, Kim Jong-un and the South Korea dude now, they're on the brink of World War III down there. The whole Middle East is falling apart. I don't think, because America wants to be the world police, and if that's what they want to be, well, then they need to police it. I do think that they have allowed things to get where they are. So then we're going to go to one of the hot topics for this election. We'll skip ahead to abortion, women's reproductive rights. So do I think that women should have reproductive rights over their body? Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. But you got to keep something in mind. To just say a blanket sure and women should do whatever they want, keep it, at the end of the day, people keep forgetting, what are you screaming about? You're screaming about your right to kill a baby, right? And I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that there got to be reasonable terms to that abortion. I don't know why people think that they're going to have an absolute unrestricted right to kill a baby. I know you want to call it a fetus because it's in your belly, but at some point that fetus becomes a baby. What point? I don't know. I'm not a biologist. But at some point it is no longer considered a fetus. So maybe that's when it could live outside of the womb, 7 months, 6 months, whatever that is. I don't know. Do I think that it should be brought back to the state? Yes, I do. And I'm sorry for the girls that live in no abortion states. But don't lose sight of the fact that you're killing a baby. If you're having a health thing where you have to terminate because of that, I agree. Obviously, to save the mother. But how often is this happening, right? So obviously, you should have things within the law that protect that. But this isn't something that's happening thousands a day, right? So for the abortion, I'm good with the state making the decision. The states, the whole idea of why it's the United States, plural, and not the United States, I don't know. I think that they've got to come up with a reasonable term limit. So if you ask ChatGPT, which I don't know how reliable that is, but I was curious. So I asked ChatGPT, could a woman terminate her pregnancy 1 week before her due date because she got in a fight with her boyfriend? And it said that, a lot of healthcare providers, go ahead and do it. A lot of healthcare providers would be unlikely to support that decision and partake in it. But there's nothing in the law expressly that would prohibit that. Well, that's a problem. If a girl and a guy get in a fight in a week before she's supposed to give birth, and she says, oh, I hate Darren, he's an asshole, I'm done with this baby, I need an abortion, and then they abort that baby, and then they're required to give it comfort care, which means a pillow and a blanket, and then it dies. Once again, I may be wrong, but I was looking into it, and that's seemingly how that works. And in my mind, that is just absolutely ridiculous. You gotta have some kind of limits. Get out of here, guys, with this shit of absolute no restrictions. Definitely this should be voted on by the people at the state level. And I'm sorry if you got to go out there and get your fuck on and get pregnant so many times and you need a bunch of abortions, then I guess you're going to have to move to a state that does allow it. Go to California, go to New York, do what you got to do. That just seems ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. The Hunter Biden laptop story. This one is confusing to me because when they said it, first of all, I don't even know why it matters. If Biden's doing coke out of hookers' assholes, whatever he's doing, I don't really care, and I don't think America should care. That's between, him and his dad. His dad should put him over his knee and give him a spanking for his poor behavior. But then when it comes to the family involvement in Ukrainian energy companies, and this unqualified person is now operating as the CEO or whatever for millions of dollars, and then, saying that he's got to add so much for the big guy, and then I don't know if his dad was there or not, but saying that, that his dad is sitting with him and not going to be pleased. Obviously, him just saying that doesn't prove his dad was there. But when Joe Biden says, I never talked to my son about his business dealings, I'm going to call bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit on that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if my son said to me, oh yeah, I sold a couple of hockey cards, I'd be like, oh cool, what did you get for him? What did you have? Whatever, you know what I mean? It's a father and a son. You're going to tell me over a course of however many years, he never asked his son how work was going? He never inquired about his business dealings. He never gave him advice. Well, if that's the case, shame on you, Joe Biden, because you're a shitty fucking father. I get into my son's business all the time asking him what he's doing and giving him advice. So you got a choice, buddy. You can either be a liar or a shitty father. Which one of the two is it? I don't know. Oh, yeah, so then I found it interesting that the Facebook and the White House had the FBI tell everyone that story was going to be misinformation and not to promote it. That was right before the election. So I didn't understand how that didn't become political interference. Remember, I'm an outsider and I may have my facts a little bit wrong, but my understanding is that story, they were trying to block it because they didn't want people talking about the ties between Joe Biden and his son's business dealings and this shady deals that were going on there. And Joe Biden is telling the Ukrainians that if they don't fire their top prosecutor that's investigating Burisma, that they're not going to get the millions of dollars in funding America's sending. It seems shady AF. That's simple. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not. Maybe the money was for cupcakes and coffee. I don't know. But it seems to me really shady. With that being said, do I think Donald Trump is shady? Yeah, probably. I don't think most people have the ability to get to that kind of wealth without being a little shady on some count. Do I think a president should have presidential immunity? Within degrees, but the things that they're charging him with, like this whole thing about the overvaluing his assets, which gave him favorable terms with the bank. That bank was giving him favorable terms anyway. They're saying he wasn't on equal playing field as every other American. Okay, at what point in Donald Trump's life was he ever on an equal playing field with the rest of America? Get out of here. That's nonsense. Of course he wasn't. It is what it is. It's now keeping that in mind. How many people work directly and indirectly for Donald Trump every day? How many between his resorts and buildings and other business things that he's got? I don't even know what all he's got going on because I don't really care. I don't look into it that much. But
how many people work for, I'm going to guess it's going to be in the thousands. Thousands of people every day get up and put on clean underwear, hopefully their socks and shoes, and they go to work and get a paycheck, and they pay their rent, they pay their mortgage, whatever they got going on, because that man exists. That asshole. He's an asshole. But at the same time, just like Elon Musk, like everyone wants to give these rich guys a hard time. Maybe they're not paying their share of tax. I don't know. He says he did. He uses loopholes that these people that are against him created. They're the ones that created the loopholes. Trust me, if he's breaking the law on his taxes, then, you know what I mean? Like, say he's claiming stuff that shouldn't have, then whatever, fine him. That's what the people get. They get a fine. You fuck up on your taxes, you pay a fine or penalty, whatever it is. But within reason, obviously. What was that, though? There was, that was the Stormy Daniels one, the whole, that it was put in as a legal expense. So money went from Trump's account to a lawyer who ended up, after the election, paying money to the prostitute to shut up. Well, it wasn't even paid for before the election. So I didn't understand how that was election interference, because what would have happened if he didn't pay it? Right? Anyway, so ultimately, we were saying about celebrities that want to go on and on, like, Robert De Niro. I think Robert De Niro is a fantastic actor. But to act like if Donald Trump gets back in, it's the end of democracy, well, I don't agree with that. Like, you know what I mean? There's checks and balances, and the president does not have absolute power. So, yeah, like, it's not like he's the genie in Aladdin and can do whatever he wants. So, I disagree with democracy will be gone. I think that we didn't even really touch on Kamala Harris yet, but Kamala Harris, first of all, I don't really, and it's not, like I said, it's nothing against her or him that I had a pre-bias or anything like that, but I find, first of all, her rambling, even though I'm a rambler, I'm not a politician, I'm not a celebrity, my rambling is because I got the ADD. Her rambling, and, well, the thing about it is that I come from a middle-class family with 4 homes and 3 Bentleys, and get the fuck out of here. You've had every advantage thrown on you in this life, and then she throws out comments about Trump coming from money and, whatever, his dad's money. That's another one I've heard so many times from people. Oh, well, if it wasn't for his dad giving him his first, $100 million or whatever they want to say, is that a bad thing? Are you really that small in life? You're going to pretend that you don't wish your dad left you however many millions of dollars to invest? Fuck off. My parents didn't give me shit, but could I rewind time and make it so that they gave me, $50 million or whatever and said, hey, son, here you go. Hopefully you do well with this. Go buy some buildings and start some businesses. Would that make me a bad guy by default just because I was given some money to invest? No. So, and I don't care if Kamala Harris came from money, or Tim Walz, or J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, I guess, came from the hills of West Virginia or whatever and worked his way up. I don't know much about him. He didn't, I would have actually preferred, I'll be honest with you, from the little I know of them, I was kind of hoping that Trump would have picked, Tulsi Gabbard, because, like, she kind of, and I'm not one for checking the box, I'll tell you right now. I'm not racist, I'm not sexist, I'm not homophobic, I'm not any of that. I'm an equalist. And in my equalist mind, I think that you shouldn't be hiring on race and all that shit, race and sex and all that. However, if that's the game they wanted to play, as seems quite popular, I thought that Tulsi Gabbard checked all the boxes. She's a woman minority with, with a background in military service. And she, I don't know, she seems like she was a former Democrat, but she's very, I think, seemingly very centrist. Like, even though she's supporting Trump because she agrees with some of the policies. One of them being letting men play in women's sports.
That's ridiculous. I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm not against transgenders playing sports. Go play sports against other transgender. Or to open teams where everybody signs up knowing what's going to happen. But just having somebody that was a dude go and compete against your daughter, just imagine for a second that your 19-year-old daughter she's gotten up at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, done all these, laps in the pools, becoming an Olympic swimmer. She's worked her way to the very top. And then all of a sudden she's got to compete against some guy and comes in second place. Is that fair to all the sacrifices made by your daughter that gave up all of that, all the, high school after parties, and all the shit she gave up, all the nights with her friends and everything, just to have some guy that on a DNA biological level is created with denser bone mass and muscle? And no, it's not right. I'm going to have to side with them on that. It's not, in my opinion, it's not right. And it's not like I'm against transgenders playing, and I'm not even against them playing against women. Go ahead, as long as the women agree to it. But just to put a dude that wears thongs onto a swim team and then give other young girls no option. Well, they do have an option. They can drop out or compete, right? Some of them have opted to just drop out. They've said, I'm not going to do it. And anyway, that's one of those ones where I'm going to have to go with Trump. I don't always like the way he says stuff. I'm not going to say his message is very nice, the way he says shit. But at the same time, I agree with the policy decision that, and I think that we're at a point where they've convinced enough people, that's my opinion, that they're transgender, because I think that's really what's going on here, is that they are convincing kids that they're gay and that they're in the wrong body and all this stuff. And I have nothing against gay people. Be gay. I really don't give a shit. I'm not into flags on everything, because I don't think it really. I hope we can move past that and just people, if you're gay, be gay, and nobody takes a second look or thought about it. I'm an equalist. I want the gays to have everything the same as everyone else, but at the same time, I don't know why we got to celebrate being gay, because what's happening, in my opinion, I might be wrong, I don't even know how many people are going to still watch this shit, but anyway, my opinion is that if you take some kid that's maybe an outcast, he's in grade 4, he's an outcast, he doesn't have very many friends, but he does see on the, on news and online and all this shit, that trannies are being really celebrated. You got Dylan Mulvaney, and there's a whole bunch of them, these transes. And they're really celebrated because it's a real accomplishment to come out and have the courage to put on a dress and say that you're a girl. And so they think, okay, so I don't really have a ton of friends, but if I grow my hair and I put in some socks in my chest and I put on a dress, now I'm brave and I'm going to be celebrated. To me, that's what I think is going on a lot of the times. And I'm not saying that boys shouldn't be able to dress up as a girl. I don't really give a shit. You want to put on a dress? Go do it. Don't matter to me. But I'm not into it, and nor do I think that we should be forcing people. If you have strong religious values, that, when basically when the white people came over to North America, they brought with them European values, which often included, religion, this, that, and the other. And so it's kind of like the founding things for America included religion in that. And then now to say that people don't have the right to honor thy religion. I'm not overly religious, but it's not like I'm not an atheist or anything like that, but I'm not really religious. But should I have to be forced to, officiate over a gay wedding? Absolutely not. That, you know what I mean? That should be an individualized right. You either want to or you don't. But, I don't know. Oh, I probably got a million more things to say on the topic, but I'll probably get ready to wrap this up. I was just out enjoying a nice drive, and I thought, you know what, I got my 360 camera, why not shoot the shit with some people? But I would love to know in the comments if you're a subscriber and you're going to unsubscribe because I said I would vote for Trump. That's cool. I get it. He's not everybody's cup of tea, and I definitely understand why. A lot of people that I've spoken with on the matters, other workers and whatnot, agree with a lot of his policies. So it's kind of like they like the message, but not the messenger. But I think it's important for people to do their own research. And I think that Joe Biden is personally, I may be wrong, but personally, I think him and Kamala Harris have been disastrous for the United States. I do not think you're in a better position today than you were 4 years ago. That's my opinion. I think America was stronger as a country. And then Biden was supposed to be the great uniter. And I don't feel that they did that at all, comparing Trump to Hitler and everything they've said and done. And Trump is no uniter either, so I'm not saying that he's a uniter, but Biden was definitely not either. So they're both very divisive. They both bash each other nonstop. Trump is very immature when he's making fun of Biden falling on stairs and his bike and all that. To me, a person's physical ability doesn't really matter for a president, and that's my opinion. I don't think the president needs to be able to walk or ride a horse or whatever, but his cognitive ability does matter, and I believe, in my opinion, Biden is in poor mental health. And Kamala Harris, she may be in better mental health, but her policies are the same as Joe Biden's that I didn't agree with. I kind of wish that Trump, I really do actually wish that Trump didn't run and they just had somebody better that shared most of his, politics that could have taken the reins, and somebody less polarizing, and that I think that would have been a better message delivery person. But anyway, I appreciate anyone that actually watched this. I have no idea how the audio is I didn't do any kind of a test first, so it's this whole video may just get scrapped and never even uploaded. So if you guys are listening to this, well, I guess I decided it was good enough. I didn't have a special microphone or anything with me. My camera was just sitting on the seat, and I was like, let's do this. I do have a lot of little stories and opinions on shit. So if you actually did enjoy this video, whether you agreed or not, but if say you just enjoyed the video anyway and hearing my perspective on it, let me know, and then we can do some more of these little driving around and story time, whatever. Yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. I was out driving. I went down to my baby mama's house briefly. Had to drop some stuff off, and then I gotta go put 4 screws in. I got my drill here, so I could go and put 4 screws in a countertop, and then I'm off to enjoy the rest of my day driving around in my little car. So yeah, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and are gonna subscribe based on this video, do me a solid and put that in the comments, just so I know. Right, just so I like to keep track of what is it people want to watch. I don't want to make a bunch of shit that nobody wants to watch, especially like this. There's no point in me spewing for an hour or whatever if nobody even wants to see it anyway. So, all right, guys. Well, we'll see you on the next one, or we won't. Peace out.